At this time, please, and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would invite everyone to just note the civility and decorum statement at the beginning of the agenda. And having done that, if we could have roll call, Madam Secretary.
Now we can. Mr. Chrisman. Here. Mr. Dissler. Here. Mr. Fedorcha. Here. Ms. Heckman. Ms. Husak. Here. Mr. Keegan.
Here.
Mr. Kern.
Here.
Ms. Culp. Here. Mr. Green.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Any members of the public who would like to comment on an agenda item this evening? You have a public here or anything? They all checked it out. They all checked, no? Okay. So then you will have your comment at the end of the meeting in the public comment section. Okay, you've all received minutes of the school board meeting held on March 14th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? So moved. Is there a second? Here. Thank you. Any discussion or questions, additions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And so ordered. Okay, we'll move into special board reports. CLIU. Kip.
Why, thank you, Mr. Green. Just a couple real quick things. We did have a meeting in March. One of the items that is out there, and I hope to see some faces, Dr. Stoker. Our June 21st is the CLIU golf tournament that does go towards the Special Needs Foundation. So that will be out at Old Homestead again. So that is one of our large fundraisers that we do every year. A lot of times that will go towards, they will purchase adaptive bikes for students. Last year, one of our Northern Lehigh students did receive an adaptive bike, which was a phenomenal thing to watch a young individual who may not have ever had the chance to ride a bike, receive that bike and ride it through the parking lot. So that is coming up, so hopefully we'll see some faces there. Also during our meeting in March, there was a review of the audit. So they presented our audit through the auditor. All is good, no findings. Everything came out on a positive note and positive income at that as well. One thing I did want to also note, on a sad note for some of us who may have heard or have known, Dr. Frank Ferrari, who was one of the directors at the IU a few years ago, unfortunately did pass away, and we did recognize him during that meeting. So for those who may have had interactions with Dr. Ferrari, passing along our sympathy to his family, as he did support Northern Lehigh and the Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit for quite some time. That is all I have, Mr. Green. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Lehigh Career and Technical Institute, Mr. Fedorcha.
Yes. Things are moving very well at LCTI. We are now in the process of interviewing candidates for our executive director, who is going to be taking a leave of, well, it's retiring in June for medical reasons. We're in our second round. It looks like we're doing very well. We've had some very good candidates. As far as our students go, things are going well, and this year we're going to go back, thank God, to having our senior awards equivalent to our graduation at the PPL Center again, not virtually this year. So I'm very happy to announce that. That's it, sir.
Matt, I just want to make one announcement. So at LCTI, the Skills USA, my neighbor, Braden Arnold, won the Skills USA. He is now going to nationals, is what he told me over the weekend. So very modest kid, but very smart, and he enjoys the Skills USA. So
yeah, we've had a few, and I didn't want to take away possibly the students' report. I don't know if they were going to report on that. So
I'm sorry, did I take away your thunder? Okay, good. Sorry, but Braden's my neighbor, and he's just so modest. The kid doesn't even, so I'm thrilled for him that he has that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Michelle is not here. Does anyone have any legislative updates of any kind? Anyone, anywhere? No? Okay.
Do you just want to, I'm sorry, Mr. Green, want to reiterate Advocacy Day,
Yeah, I'm
April.
not sure the date.
April 29th, if any of the board members want to sign up for anything, there's both in-person and virtual. That has come out in our bulletins that we had as a board, so.
I'm sorry, April 25th is the correct date, April 25th.
Thank you.
That's where, as board or as parents, as teachers, that's where a lot of information gets talked about to our legislators. So if there's things out there that we're concerned about, want to talk about, that's really the place to go to get things started. So if you are passionate about that, a day in Harrisburg or a virtual call is definitely well worth the review and the view of that information.
Thank you, Gail. It's amazing, the parallels. In my report tonight, I wasn't going to mention the one, but we also have a golf tournament coming up, and I think I challenged you to see who raises the most money or something
got it.
like that. We'll buy coffee for the loser or whatever. And we also lost one of our fellow members, Mr. Joe Albin from Whitehall Copley, who's been on the board for quite a few years, also passed this week. So we're in the same situation that you are. And he will be missed, I can tell you that. Very smart guy, very good in mathematics, and kept us on our toes. So that's my only report. Okay, you all have received copies of the committee reports. That's item E. Is there a motion to accept the committee reports?
We don't need a motion
I
for that.
don't need a motion for that.
No.
Yeah, okay. Let's go to student reps then. Paige, there you are. Janelle?
Good evening, everyone. To start off, I would like to talk about student council stuff. So we hosted a spirit week from March 21st to the 25th. And normally with like spirit, we're doing this because, you know, the homecoming whole situation. And so we wanted to also do a spirit week along with it, along with pep rally. So we did like versus. So the first one was country versus country club, then DC versus Marvel, bikers versus surfers, and then blue and white for the pep rally day, because that was on a Thursday because of sports on Friday. And then Friday we did going out versus staying in, so like dressing up versus, you know, like wearing pajamas. On Thursday this week, Mr. Sanders, student council officers, sorry, I just talked about that, the pep rally. During the pep rally, we did a pine throwing contest. Thank you for Mr. Latonin for donating your face. We really appreciate that. We also did a tug of war contest between like the classes. So we did like sophomore versus seniors, and then juniors versus freshmen, and of course, you know, the seniors won. You know. And then the homecoming dance, the spring homecoming dance, was on March 26th, and we would like to thank Mr. Zander and the student council, Mr. Shuey and the art club, Mrs. Crucial, Mr. Dieter, Mr. Pine, and Mr. Ling, as well as the parents and the student volunteers. I just want to say a special thanks to all the kids that were at the dance and stayed that were not in student council, because we really appreciated all the help that you guys offered. Moving on, March 31st was the first day of the fourth marking period, so school's almost over. Very exciting. Every Wednesday, Angie Vasquez from PA Career Link comes into the high school to discuss post-secondary opportunities. This is also a great opportunity for students who are looking to have a career after high school that maybe don't really know what they want to do, or they're not sure if they want to go into college, or they're struggling financially. So she's there to help anyone who needs it. Local scholarships have been sent out from Mrs. Smith, so seniors you can go in and oh my goodness, I can't think. You can go to the office and you can pick up those papers, or you can look in your Gmail and she's emailed them to you. I believe that the other scholarships that are like not local ones have been coming out for a while now. Student council is putting on like the posters for like the athletics, so like that's going out tomorrow, I think. So if you're in like track or something, you'll have a poster with her name on it. On April 7th, the high school hosted a weather drill. I was told that it ran smoothly, and it's a good way to prepare for any tornadoes that we might get in PA. I would like to congratulate Ms. Mallory's home on their exceptional attendance, which won them breakfast with Mr. Scholl flipping some omelets. I actually got to witness that. That was very interesting. Along with this, Mr. Dieter, Mr. Long, Ms. Wilder, and Ms. Workheiser homerooms were also recognized as runner-ups. I believe they got donuts. Senior portraits are coming out April 11th for, class of this week, class of 2023, already kicking out the seniors. They'll be taking the auditorium, and you can schedule those online if you have not done that. Spring break will be from April 14th to the 18th, and I am super excited for that because, man, I could really use a break. On April 14th, Mr. Northern Lehigh will be held. Oh, that's May 14th. On May 14th, Mr. Northern Lehigh will be held in the auditorium, which now 5 senior boys will be competing to win the title of Mr. Northern Lehigh. This will be Chase Jones, Jared Thomason, Nate Walters, and Dustin Green, and Owen Levanuler, and Devin Vega as our student hosts. We are combining this event with the food drive. We are not charging for admissions, and then we ask if everyone can bring canned food items to contribute to our food drive. Sorry, that was a lot. I'm now going to pass it off to Danielle.
Hello everyone, I have a lot as well. There's been a lot going on, and Student Council has lots of events as well as other events. The first thing I'm going to report on is on April 22nd, we will be having a career fair in the high school from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. for grades 7 to 12. Mr. Stroll has organized this and has coordinated local and larger businesses as well as colleges and universities for students to talk to and get more information about. Branches of the military and community membership organizations for students will also be introduced there for us students to look at. On April 23rd, Running of the Dogs will be held, which is very fun. I know NHS, we will be volunteering there to help with the event. There will be a registration beginning at 7:30 and then a 1-mile fun run as well as a 5K. On April 28th, Student Council and the Miller Keystone will be hosting a blood drive in the high school gym from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And this is open to the whole community, so if you would like to donate blood, feel free to make an appointment and help us out. Another thing I'm excited for is on April 30th is the junior and senior prom. This is the first year we're having it combined, so that'll be interesting. It'll be at Blue Mountain from 6:30 to 9:30. There were about 200 tickets purchased, and we are looking forward to an enjoyable night. Along with that, recently the prom court was voted on and decided. This year it's going to be seniors, so in the past it had been juniors. So we're going to have seniors this year. The boys on prom court are Trevor Morum, Brett Mazzara, Ian Molina, Dylan Smoyer, Matt Frame, Chase Jones, and Nick Schweitzer. And the girls on prom court are Sophia Lear, Samantha Slack, Kendall Haney, Alexis Hollinger, Emily Moyer, Brooke Nonamaker, and Cameron Torres. So congrats to them. That's a nice group of people from the school. Next, I have our sports report. So first, I'm going to report on football. I know football was a while ago, but they're still getting recognized for their achievements as they deserve. The football banquet was on April 2nd, and many of the football players were recognized for their accomplishments, specifically Jaden Klapaski, Matt Frame, Austin Smith, Brett Mazzara, Trevor Morum, Matt Frame, Sam Frame, and Dylan Smoyer received awards for their achievement this past season, which was like defensive back, offensive lineman, the Bulldog Award, all sorts of recognition. And then I also wanted to congratulate AJ Watong, Brett Mazzara, Dylan Smoyer, and Trevor Morum for receiving all-state recognition. So they got their plaques, and those will go up in the high school. And then on to spring sports, which is what's going on now. Baseball, their record in the league is 0-5, and their overall is 0-6. But they are having a fundraiser on Tuesday, April 19th. The Geekers Tacos food truck will be coming to the stadium. So if you would like to support, I know there's a track meet that night, so feel free to come support them by getting tacos. I know I will be there. Softball, their record is in league is 3-2. I think it's been updated since they've had games, and their overall is 4-3. On Friday, I want to congratulate them. They played Palmerton and they were able to win, which was very great. I know I have a friend who plays softball and she was very happy about that. Finally, I would like to report on track and field. The boys are 0-3 for their record and the girls are 1-2. But Emily Moyer, I want to congratulate her for breaking the pole vault record with height of 9 feet and 3 inches. That's great. I was really excited to see that for her. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
I have one question, ladies, if I may. When do you have time to go to school with all these activities? Do you go to school at all between them, or no? You just
There's lots of after school
No.
time. We just came from Mr. Northern Lehigh practice, actually.
okay. Thank you very much for your report, both of you. Solicitor's report?
Yes, very briefly, just wanted to notify the board that about 2 weeks ago, the Pennsylvania Independent Regulatory Review Commission passed regulations which would impose stricter regulatory standards upon Pennsylvania charter schools. Some of the new regulations include requiring the same accounting and auditing practices that school districts are required to comply with. Charter School Board of Trustees must comply with the Pennsylvania Public Official and Employee Ethics Act, which school board members must comply with. It imposes a dispute resolution process for school districts and charter schools to follow in the event there are any funding disputes. And it also would require standard application process specifying the specific types of information that new charter school applicants must submit to school districts during the approval process. So once it goes through the entire process and all is said and done, these new regulations may be in effect as early as May of this year. So we'll keep you posted.
Thank you. Do you want Sherry, do you want to do yours and have Sherry do it? Do you want her to do it now?
Mine will take 2 minutes. I'm happy to go now.
Yeah, you want to do it? Yeah. Is that all right? Then you can kind of set your thing up and do it. I'm just going to switch the agenda a little bit, if I may, and I'm going to call on the superintendent to give his report, which he said should not take long, and then Dr. Stoker, if you would give your report, and then we'll go into the budget presentation when she can get set up, okay? Mr. Lake?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Green. I'd like to announce this evening that graduation will be held on June 3rd in the stadium at 7 p.m. So that is Friday, June 3rd. The rain date will be Saturday, June 4th, at a time to be determined. We're not going to lock in now whether it's going to be the morning or the evening, depending what weather may look like the day before and the evening before. So again, June 3rd at 7 p.m. in Bulldog Stadium for graduation. This evening, I would also like to recognize our middle school What's So Cool About Manufacturing Lehigh Valley team. They won, for the second year in a row, they won the Team Spirit Award. The members of that team were Olivia Schaefer, Evelina Mayak, Kylie Snyder, Landon Rosado, Samantha Mack, and Adriana Danluck. I don't know if any of you have watched it on television or actually have been there in person, but it's really like the Grammys for these middle school kids as they go above and beyond for how they recognize the students, their teacher coaches. Our teacher coach was Mrs. Mary Frank from the middle school. And they really do it up right for these students, the coaches, and the students' family. So if you have an opportunity, I recommend that you go onto the website just to check out some of the highlights. CLIU also posted a highlight reel and interviewed a couple of our students on their highlights. So again, congratulations to the middle school What's So Cool About Manufacturing team. Second year in a row that they won the Team Spirit Award. And that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Stoker?
Thank you. The ESSER report on our grants this evening, I'll keep brief, as I know we'll be talking about the 22-23 budget. They are at the board members' places. For the public, they're also out on the table. Since last month, there's been some expenditures regarding salaries, and then also Bulldog Academy summer courses, which would originally be taken out of the Northern Lehigh budget, were moved to that grant. So those are the main expenditures for the ESSER grants from last month through this month. With regard to our school-wide positive behavior and intervention support program at Peters, at the end of March, Peters' school-wide positive behavior intervention and support program was evaluated by an impartial evaluator from CLIU 21. And I'm happy to report that Peters earned a 100% in their Tier 1 on tiered fidelity inventory, which demonstrates essentially that they have maintained fidelity in the universal supports. And they also earned an 88% in Tier 2, demonstrating fidelity for the first time at that tier. So congratulations to Mr. Schneiderite, the team, staff, and all of the students. So Mr. Schneiderite, I know you wanted to share a few words as well.
Good evening, everybody. I just wanted to take a chance because I wasn't here on Wednesday due to illness at the committee meetings, but I just wanted to let you know who the team is that needs to be congratulated. Our team consists of school counselor Kelly Cromer, kindergarten teacher Suzanne Hedgedis, first grade teacher Lauren Schuster, second grade teachers Janet Bayshore, excuse me, Janet Bayshore, and I thought this was going to be easier, and Lisa Hairston, and our special education member is Everly Puglia. They, as well as the entire staff, deserve kudos for what we do to make every day a positive day at Peters. So, thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
And that's my report this evening.
Are you approved? Dr. Stoker, you said you're approved?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions for her? Anyone? No? Okay, we did have an executive session at 6:15. That was basically for personnel items. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, Ms. Montoya.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I'm not sure if the board members would like to take seats out there or turn your chairs around to look at the projector, the screen, whichever is fine. Mr. Link and I are going to go through the 2022-2023 proposed school year and district long-term planning document. Again, this is still a work in progress. We are still working on additions and deletions from the current budget. So the final, proposed final will be shown at our May Finance Committee meeting and first round approval at our May board meeting. Go ahead, Stephen.
Thank you, Mrs. Molitoris. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide because Dr. Stoker just gave us a more detailed update on the ESSER spending. So you can take a look at that slide up on the screen behind me there. And that will continue to be updated as we move forward with the dedicating ESSER monies for different equipment, personnel, or activities through 2024. Okay, Steve? Up next, we'll talk a little bit about the COVID-19 effects for food services. Again, nothing has changed on this slide since Wednesday evening. Some of the negatives are that we lost revenue from monthly general operating profits, average daily losses from a la carte sales, and minor catering, and less overall participation. This is because everything from we have not been offering the a la carte lines to we've been doing less kind of catering events that the food services department is paid for, and just overall less participation. We noticed that more students have been bringing their lunch, and then of course all lunches have been free for students due to the USDA approving free lunches for everyone. As a reminder, that is set to end at the end of this school year. We are hopeful that we'll be able to pay for lunches through the summer for our summer programs by qualifying for their SSO, which is their seamless summer option. And there recently was some bills put forward in the month of March to try to extend the free lunch program for students through September of 2023. Those are in the infancy of that process right now. We are preparing as if that's not going to happen so we can actively communicate with parents to begin filling out free and reduced lunch applications as we move into the new school year. Those applications will be opened on July 1st. Okay, up next, some positives are that we can recoup some lost revenue during the summer feeding program approved by USDA through the end, again, through the end of this school year. Mrs. Fink is applying for the SSO program, which I just spoke about. If we are approved for that, we will be sure to make sure the community knows that their children coming to any of our camps will receive a free lunch, and actually any child in the district that lives within the district is eligible to come through the grab-and-go option like we've hosted the past couple of years, one time a week, but they'll receive enough meals for the entire week. And some unknowns are that free meals for everyone are ending. It's uncertain of how many families will qualify for free or reduced meals moving into the fall, and supply issues and increased product costs. We are still seeing some supply chain issues, and of course, if anybody's looked at the price of milk or eggs recently, we know that those are continue to rise. Okay, next slide, please.
This slide talks about the Act 1 index. This year, the Act 1 index is 3.4%. That is the the flat index. Northern Lehigh's adjusted index is 4.6%. 23-24 school year is the IFO office is predicting a 4.3 Act 1 index. 24-25. They're again predicting a 4.3, 25-26, it's starting to go back down to a 3.6, and they feel that going forward it's going to continue to go back down. PSER's contribution rates projections, these were as of the 2021, June 30th. For the 2022 school year, it is set at 35.26%. And then the 23 school year, it is projected to be 35.69, 24, 36.02, and 25, 36.48%. That will continue to grow until, I believe it's somewhere in the middle of the 2033, 34 school year, somewhere in that time, and then it will start going back down, but it's going to go down very slowly. So this is something that will continue to have a strain on our district budget. Stephen?
Okay, up next we have our district profile. I spoke a little bit about this Wednesday evening. If you focus on the column to the far right, that's our anticipated enrollment for the upcoming school year. You will notice that we are projecting a spike in our incoming kindergarten class. Right now, April 11th, we're about 120 families that are somewhere within the registration process for their sons or daughters coming into kindergarten. And you'll notice that this year's kindergarten class is at 106. This will have staffing implications for us, which we will talk about as we move further into the presentation this evening. Next slide, Steve.
Can I ask a question, Matt?
Sure.
I'm sorry. Can you go back a second? What's the total difference between the current school year and anticipated? I just couldn't do the math in my head.
Are you talking about student enrollment?
Yeah,
or,
student enrollment.
Okay. So,
Sorry.
That's okay, I can get it.
yeah, so that's probably going to be about anywhere from 24 to 44.
Less or more?
More.
Okay.
And the bulk of that will most likely materialize, I shouldn't say materialize, they're young children. The bulk of that will most likely be enrolled in the kindergarten class.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I apologize, thanks.
And then here we just kind of have a student enrollment graph by building back to the 2017-2018 school year, and then through the projection for the upcoming school year. You'll see for the most part our building numbers are stable. The most fluctuation I would say is within the high school, although next year we could see some considerable fluctuation with Peters Elementary School. Okay, our employee profile, you'll see here, you can see what our staffing levels are for the different work groups for the current school year, 21-22. And then you can also see what we're projecting them to be or what they could possibly be for next school year on the far right column in red there. And you'll notice that some of those numbers have asterisks next to them. Near the bottom there, we just kind of want to call out at this point that that includes all the positions that are currently funded through ESSER funds. It also includes an additional elementary special education teacher. It also includes an additional elementary teacher or computer technology teacher. Ultimately, the school board is going to have to make a decision as to where, if they would like to fill either of those positions. And then also an additional .5 middle school position teacher. Obviously for this building, that would be expanding the position that's currently our FCS position to a full-time position to pick up some other responsibilities. And an addition of a school police officer to the administrative support staff agreement. So that's not a new position. That's taking a position that has to this point been funded through grant funds and putting it into the administrative support staff work group to become part of our general operating budget in case those grant funds would ever go away. However, if that switch is approved, it is absolutely the intent of the administration to continue to apply for the grants that are available to fund that position. We just want to be prepared if those grants go away that we can still have 2 school police officers on this campus and also at Peters Elementary School. And I'm going to turn it back over to Mrs. Molitoris to talk more about our expenditures and revenues.
So this is looking back over the last 5 years and the projected where we're going to end the end of the 21-22 school year. So the red bars represent our expenditures and our green bars represent our revenues. So pretty much every year you can see that we have been outspending our revenues. We've been having more expenditures than the revenues we've received in, so we have been using our fund balance. Except when you get to 2021, you see the green line is very large. You have to remember that that was our full year of COVID, so there was a lot of stuff that didn't happen. We didn't have transportation at least one day every week. Schools weren't running at full capacity. Heating oil was less. There was a lot of factors that played into that huge revenue, difference in revenue from our expenditures. That was the year last year we put $2.4 million back into our fund balance, and that fund balance was earmarked to be used for our upcoming debt service payments that were going to coming back as of this year. The end of the 2021-2022 school year, I'm predicting we're probably going to put somewhere around $400,000 back in the fund balance again. And again, that's based on right now's numbers. It is still a work in progress. We can have one student move in and be a high cost to the district, and that can just flip my numbers in a heartbeat. So right now, this is just projected where we think we're going to end the end of the year. If we do put about $400,000 back into fund balance, we will end the end of the June 2022 school year with $12.6 million in fund balance. That's Stephen. This just shows where our fund balance has gone. So if you look at the 2016 school year, we had $11.7 million in fund balance. Jumped up a little bit in 2017, and then it declined through 2019-20, pretty much stayed status quo between the 19 and 20 school year, and then it climbed again in 21. That was because it was that COVID year that we put a lot of money back in the fund balance, and then the $400,000 I'm anticipating putting in this year. Stephen?
Okay, our recommended actions for Peters Elementary School is to integrate the computer technology instruction into library classes. If that's supported by the school board, then we would not have to consider hiring an additional computer technology instructor to be shared among Peters and Slatington Elementary School. Administratively, we are recommending that we embed that instruction into our library classes under the direct instruction of our current elementary librarian. We are recommending that we add an additional kindergarten teacher, although ultimately that final decision would be determined by enrollment. Again, I will emphasize that right now the numbers are trending that we would need to go from 6 kindergarten teachers to 7 kindergarten teachers, and there are rooms available in Peters Elementary School if we need to expand to a 7th classroom. We're also recommending that we relocate 1 paraprofessional to Slatington Elementary School. I did confirm that it is a special education paraeducator that would go from 2nd grade to 3rd grade for support for a specific student. And then no budgetary increases for materials or programs at Peter Elementary School. Next slide, please. Okay, for Slatington Elementary School, we are recommending that we add a special education teacher due to caseload sizes. This is a compliance issue. Special education teachers are only allowed to have so many students on their caseload, depending on whether they are an itinerant special education teacher, a supplemental special education teacher, or a full-time special education teacher. Here, we're looking to add an additional supplemental special education teacher. Again, we are recommending for Slatington Elementary School that we integrate computer technology instruction into the library classes to be instructed by our current elementary librarian. Here we just have that this is the building that would receive that one paraprofessional from Peters Elementary School, so this kind of mirrors the previous slide. And again, no budgetary increases for materials or programs at Slatington Elementary School. Next slide, please. Okay, for recommended action at the middle school, we're recommending that the school board considers increasing the current family consumer science position, which is a 0.5 position, a half a position, to a full-time employee position, and they would pick up additional responsibilities for career readiness in Tier 1 positive behavior support. This is coming from feedback we received from staff, students, and parents about the success of the career readiness program at the middle school. It would supplement what Mr. Weber is doing with his essential skills class and his financial literacy class. Here, this person would be more responsible for doing things like supporting the other core content and teachers to embed careers education in those classes, as well as working directly with Mr. Stroll and Mr. Hauser, implementing Tier 1 behavior interventions. We are recommending no budgetary increase for materials or programs at the middle school. Next slide, please. At the high school, we are recommending status quo for staffing of support staff, status quo for staffing of professional staff, and no budgetary increases for materials or programs. Next slide, please. And Sherry?
So our 22-23 budget concerns on the expenditure side of things, we have cost drivers. Our cost drivers are always our salaries, our retirement and PSERS, and our medical. That is going up in the upwards of almost $800,000, including Social Security is also in there. LCTI budget this year had an increase of $99,000. Now that is based on student enrollment that attends LCTI, and that's based on a 5-year rolling average. So as more students go there, we're going to end up paying more to LCTI. Charter school and outplacement potential increases. So charter schools continue to be increasing, students attending charter schools, and outplacement again is always a concern depending upon the needs of the students and where we might have to place them can be a cost driver to the district. Cost reductions, we were able to cut $40,000 again out of this year's budget. Mr. Durr's buildings and grounds budget for electricity, and that's still all in retrospect to the ESCO project that we completed about 2.5 years ago. And then unknown yet is heating oil. We all know what gas and oil have been doing lately. We're waiting to see where the bids, when we open bids on April 30th, we're hoping to get fixed rates, but really don't know if we're going to be able to get any kind of fixed rate, which probably means it's going to be fluctuating, which then can really be a driving force for the budget, because that's all of our diesel for our buses, not to mention heating oil and gas and everything else that ends up playing a role into that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So you have the LCTI enrollment, and that's based on number of students that go there.
Correct.
If we switch to letting them go full day, how much would that amount go up?
That's the capstone program. Right?
Sure, so that would be their, the capstone program, which would be part of their full-day academy program. It would depend on how many students actually were to take advantage of that. And again, that $99,000 number there, that's not that we saw an increase in 1 year. It's just that they updated the 5-year rolling average.
Right.
So it's really based on the number of students there. We have never sent students, to my knowledge, we have never sent students to the full-day program at LCTI. We have been receiving increased requests from students and their parents for their children to be able to participate in a full-day program at LCTI. And I believe we are going to talk more about that at the next curriculum council meeting. Is that accurate, Dr. Stoker? Yes, at the next curriculum council meeting.
Thank you.
And I believe, Donna, that also, ma'am, if I'm not mistaken, that also rolls on a 5-year rolling average.
Yeah, everything's a 5-year.
Yes, so it would take in retrospective where we would sit we would have 1 year of enrollment versus all the other school districts who would have 5 years worth of enrollment. So as more kids would go there and that number would go for 5 years, then it would increase.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Lynn, that doesn't include transportation costs, however, right? That's just the tuition to go to LCTI.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
How many buses do we,
We're currently running 3 buses. Yes.
Are we good?
Yep.
All right, Stephen? Next is you.
So here is just a line graph of our charter school enrollment. 2018, you can see that we had 45 students enrolled, and this is a combination of traditional brick and mortar charter schools as well as cyber charter schools. In the year 2020, we saw, well, from 2020 to 2021, we saw a significant spike from 67 to 102. That's a result of the pandemic. Many families enrolled their students in particular into cyber charter schools, not Bulldog Academy. And then it started to level off again going into this school year, 102 to 107 students. That number does ebb and flow throughout the school year, but I suspect that will end up somewhere around 107 students at the end of this school year. Here we have it broken out a little bit more. This is cost. 2018, we were paying about $600,000. Now we're paying this current school year, we're projected. So that number is a projection based on current enrollments through the end of the year, $1.68 million. The red line is students who do not have special needs, and the green line is students that do have special needs. The cost right now under Pennsylvania's funding formula for charter schools and cyber charter schools, the cost for a Northern Lehigh School District student without an IEP, without special needs, to attend a charter or a cyber charter school is approximately
14.
approximately $14,000. The cost of a special education student or a student with special needs to attend a charter, brick and mortar, or cyber charter is approximately
Just under 31.
just under $31,000. About $14,000 for a regular education student, about $31,000 for a student with special needs, and that's because of the funding formula. Next slide, please. Here we have it broken out by the number of students, excuse me, the number of students in charter schools. The blue line are students that attend cyber charter schools. That's the cost. You will see that we have seen a decline in the cost, a decrease in the cost from last year to this year. That means those students either came back to our school buildings or to our Bulldog Academy, or their families moved out of Northern Lehigh School District. And the red line is the cost of about $380,000 for students that are attending a brick and mortar charter school. Okay.
So our current budget revenue, 93.7% is what we budget for collection rate of our revenues and our real estate taxes, and we normally collect right around 93.75%, and that's what I'm projecting again for the 22-23 school year. Our Act 1 index, as I said, is set at 4.6%. So the board did pass a motion in January that said we would not raise over the index. So the most they can raise is 4.6%. If they do raise it to the maximum of 4.6%, we will have an additional $813,000 in tax revenue. Federal revenues for the year have been budgeted at what they were for the 21-22 school year. As we talk about the state revenues, they're budgeted at, again, the 21-22 rates. Basic education, though, the governor's proposed budget is showing Northern Lehigh to receive $768,000 in additional revenue. And for special education, almost $233,000 in additional revenue. We have not budgeted that into the budget at this point in time because we don't know where it's going to land. We don't have a clue whether the governor's budget is going to pass as is, if it's going to pass half of what he says or a quarter of what he says or not at all. It all depends on the two caucuses and where they end up pulling, which group is the loudest to get the most money. So it's an ebb and flow game at this point in time. We're kind of waiting to see. Hopefully we'll get a budget passed before our budget has to be passed. They're saying they're thinking we will be early June, but they're not. Nothing's written in stone. We are proposing, you will see later, to use fund balance. So what would happen is if we do use fund balance and any of this is realized and it's not in the budget, it just means that we would use less fund balance than what we're projecting because we would have all this additional revenue coming in.
Sure, so is there a chance that we would have to do our budget with the tax increase before we know what we get from the state?
Yes. If they don't pass the budget ahead of time, we're not gonna know that. Yep.
And we couldn't go back on that tax increase. Correct, once we pass that, like, if we put the 4.8% out there, and we're saying that's what you have to pay, but then the state gives us more money, we can't.
We would have to open back up the budget and go all through the budgeting process again.
Could we refund to the taxpayers?
That I do not know. That I'd have to check.
Okay, thank you.
And honestly, that would be just like reopening the budget. It would be reopening the budget. So we'd have to reopen it, and then it would have to, I'm assuming would have to go through the entire process again. So it would have to sit for so many days, and I don't know if you can do that with the fact that you have to have a budget passed by June 30th.
Okay,
So I can check into that, though. I can definitely ask for you.
thank you.
Good?
I can tell you I've never seen it done.
Correct.
So-
Yep.
I didn't think, but yeah, things are different now. I didn't,
Yeah,
thought it's worth a look into or an ask. That's all.
right.
I believe it can be done, but I am gonna double check on that.
Yeah, that's what I said. I don't believe it can be done. I know you can open it for federal programs if you want to put more expenditures in, and then you offset them with the federal revenues. But I've never heard of anybody that has opened it up once it's been passed because they've gotten more from the state for basic ed funding to lower taxes.
Gotcha, okay.
All right, so the current fund balance, this was approved as of November, and that was for our fund balance ending June 30th of 2021. So we were projecting to use $386,000 out of fund balance to balance this year's budget, which we're not. I'm predicting we're not going to be able to need to use, excuse me. And the other yellow highlighted line is that future debt service payments, so that $2.4 million that we did receive in increased revenues to increase our fund balance for this year, that was earmarked for those debt service payments that were going to be coming back this year. So when we did end June 30th of 2021, we did have $12.1 million in our fund balance, and that's currently where we sit with our fund balance.
How much did we go out for when we did that the 2.4 is included, that 2.4 million? What was the amount that we got as the overall amount?
I'm sorry, I'm
Is
not,
that the overall amount of what the debt service is going forward, or is that just?
No, this is just what we put back into fund balance.
Okay.
So this, our debt service payment, if we had made our debt service payments this year, our debt service payments would be $3 million. So we would have ended up being $600,000 short.
I just didn't know what the total of that debt payment is that we owe.
It's over, total in all till the end
Yeah,
of time?
yeah.
To a little over $25 million
Okay,
in
thank
principal,
you.
in
Thank you.
principal and interest.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so here is a look at our long-term project planning and fund balance, specifically related to facilities and equipment. I'm not going to read through these line by line. You can see everything that we completed already when we first came up with the long-term facilities plan at the end of the 18-19 school year. You'll see some things we have purposefully delayed, like the purchase of furniture for the middle school classrooms, purchase of furniture for the high school classrooms, except for when we renovated the science wing at the classroom and added two at the high school and added two additional science classrooms. Those rooms did receive new furniture. The middle school kitchen project will begin. Actually, it's already begun. They've already started ordering the equipment. It's being manufactured. We will start to move some stuff around even before the end of the school year. And then once we're done instructing for the school year, that's when the demolition will occur and new stuff will start to be installed. Again, Slatington Elementary School furniture replacement, we're looking to delay. Over the past couple weeks, some school board members, Mr. Durr, myself, Dr. Stoker, we've done facilities walkthroughs. Some of the remaining items that you'll see on here are a direct result of those walkthroughs. Recommending in the 23-24 school year, we look at installing another large utility shed or pole building and tearing down the one that's over by the field house now. It's starting to get to the point where we can no longer repair it. Peter's furniture replacement is still on here for 23-24. The dividing wall between Peter's gym and cafeteria needs to be replaced. We're constantly repairing it. Those are not inexpensive. You can see that's a $130,000 tear out and reinstall for a new one. 23-24 maintenance truck with a utility box. That's something we're predicting we'll be able to take right out of the actual buildings and grounds budget. Chillers at Northern Lee High School, 24-25, as well as another zero-turn lawnmower in the upcoming years. The two big projects on here are the water treatment plant at Peters. We have to continue to track that. That could minimally be $500,000 to tear that out and put a new one in. And the baseball softball field complex, we're now looking at 2030, 2031. Minimally, that's going to be $1 million to do that correctly because of the drainage issues over there. A lot of the smaller items that were on those facility walkthroughs, which are really just kind of small maintenance type items, they've already begun. Mr. Durr has an ongoing punch list for that. Things like removing water fountains that just aren't used anymore and not replacing them, replacing some ceiling tiles in certain areas. Just kind of, some sinks, some urinals, stuff like that, where they need to be either repaired or removed. So that work has already begun. That's done with our in-house maintenance staff, and it's in this year's budget.
So this is our overall picture of our district expenditures versus our district revenues for the 2022-2023 school year. Our total expenditures, we're looking at $37.785 million. And our revenues currently are trending at about $35,715,000. That local does have a total tax increase of the 4.6 built into it, so that is the $813,000. Again, that's a decision the board will have to make. If they choose to go less than that, which is their their final decision, that means your budget shortfall is going to be more than the $2,069,000. So we are still currently showing $2,069,000 short in our fund balance. We pulled short in our expenditures versus our revenues. If we pull all of that 4.6% tax increase out of there, you're $2.9 million short. It would be the $2,069,000 plus that $813. So you would actually be $2.9 million short between your expenditures and your revenues for next year's school year. This is just an overall bar graph of our expenditures. So as you can see, the front part on the left-hand side is your salaries, your other benefits, your medical, and your retirement. That all totals about 66% of your general operating budget. And then on the right-hand side, all the way over to the right, that is your principal repayment. Most of that money is our debt service payment that came back this year. That's over $3 million. So between those two, you're somewhere around 70% of your school district budget are in those fixed costs. And then on top of it, you still do have those other fixed costs, charter school costs. You saw that $1.7 million. Again, we have to pay that. We can't not pay that. You have your buildings and grounds with your fuel oil and your electricity and our phone service, and all of that is all fixed cost as well that are in this budget as well that we basically do not have much control over. Our revenues, again, that local at $20 million does have that $813,000 tax increase in there. If they pull that out, the one to the right, which is our fund balance, we were estimating using $2,070,000. That would increase, the blue would go down, and that red fund balance would go up to 2.9 if we pulled everything out of the local. So that's where we're standing right now with our revenues to equal our expenditures. We need to use the money out of fund balance to cover that.
Can I just ask a question while
Sure.
you're on the slide? This
Sure.
does not include the extra, almost $1 million of
Correct.
state money, correct?
That is correct.
Okay,
The extra state money is not in here, so
Not in
if
here,
we
it's
get
not on-
that,
It's not on this slide.
you got it. So if we get that, that fund balance is gonna go down. Yep.
Now, wait a minute, if we get the extra money from the state?
Correct. So if if we would end up getting the $1 million extra, the 700 and some thousand from basic ed and whatever from the 230 some thousand from special ed, that almost $1 million that is not built into these revenues at this point in time.
Oh, I thought you said it would go down, that's why I didn't
Right,
understand.
so the fund balance we would need to use less fund balance if we got that money in additional revenues.
The amount used would go down. Okay. 'cause
You got
I
it.
just
The
heard you
amount
say it.
used would
Thank
go
you.
down. It
Yeah,
wouldn't be
wouldn't-
2 point,
gotcha.
right, it wouldn't be
Thank
2
you.
million anymore,
Yeah.
it would be like $1 million.
Gotcha.
Yep. All right, Stephen? So this is just where I'm estimating our fund balance will end at the end of the 2022 school year. Again, that is if we did do the tax increase. If we do not, in that yellow section, I have us using $2,070,000. And we would end then our end of year fund balance with 12,617, but then when we used 12,617,000, if we use the 2 million, we're gonna be down around $10 million in our fund balance at the end of the 22-23 school year. You set your fund balance at the end of June based on where your numbers from the prior school year ended. So in this slide, I'm showing we're gonna end about $12.6 million in fund balance, but I have earmarked a little over 2 million to be used to balance the 22-23 school district budget. Again, if we use more, if we pull out all that tax, that 2 million is gonna go up to 2.9 million then, and we'll need to pull monies from elsewhere to cover that increase for the 2.9 million. So the tentative big picture, expenditures are at 37,785, revenues are at 35.7 million, we're shortfall of 2.69. PSERS increased $222,000, recommending taking that out of the committed fund balance that we have always committed for our PSERS payments. Medical insurances did increase by 12.3% this year. That's an increase of $228,000. We have fund balance earmarked for increased medical costs. We're looking at taking that out of that, which leaves us short then of the $2,069,000 by $1.6 million. And I would recommend if we do go that route and we're going to use fund balance, that we take that out of the debt service payment, because that's what came back, and that's the money that we had earmarked last year that we put in the fund balance to be used for that increase next year. So at the end of the 22-23 school year, if we use $2,079,000, we would still have a fund balance of $10,548,000. If you don't decide to go with the 4.6 and you do anything less than that, that's going to lower the amount of fund balance you're going to have left at the end of the year, because you're going to need to use more fund balance money to make up the money that you're not raising in taxes. So that 10.5 would be less. Go ahead, Stephen. So again, as I said, we can't increase taxes more than the 4.6%. Based on that board motion that was passed in January. So that would give us $813,000 in additional revenues. And for a home valued at $140, a median assessed valued home at $149,000 in Lehigh County would be a $144 tax increase for the upcoming school year. Northampton County at a median assessed valued home at $45,000 would be $165. And again, keep in mind that we live in a dual county. So in dual counties, we must equalize mills between both Lehigh and Northampton County. And that's based on STEB market values. And that has to be rebalanced every year. That is built into the system that PDE uses for putting in the budget into their budgeting system. Stephen, if you want to advance for me. So what happens with step calculations? So looking at last year, 21-22, Lehigh County had an assessed value of $658 million. Northampton County had an assessed value of $42 million. Our current millage rate when we passed the budget last year was 22.5637 for Lehigh County and 66.6064 for Northampton County. If you multiply that assessed value by that millage rate, that's going to give you your total revenue dollars that you collect from each from each municipality or county. So Lehigh County, we get $15.5 million of tax revenue from them. Northampton County, we get $2.8 for a total tax levy of $18,333,000. But then we have to roll STEBs into it. So the STEB market value is 2 years behind. So it lags back to 2020 for this year. So if you look, our assessed value at Lehigh County is $658,000 or $1 million, but Lehigh County under the STEB market value only has us at $609 million. Northampton County, though, is $42 million. Keep in mind that's assessed value during the 21-22 school year, but Northampton County is assessed at 50%. So when the STEB market value looks at it, STEB market value is saying how much is the value of that home actually in the marketplace. So in the marketplace, the value of all of the homes in Northampton County is $112 million. So you add the 609 and the 112 together, total STEB market value of properties is $721 million. So then you need to divide that and get the percentage of the market value. So Lehigh County is responsible for 84.47% of the tax revenue. Northampton County is responsible for 15.52% of the tax revenue. So when we take the market value and multiply it by the total revenue for the 21-22 school year, that's where the rebalancing comes in. So last year, Lehigh County was only $15,509,000 with the rebalancing. Lehigh County would be responsible for $15,487,000. Lehigh County went from Northampton County went from $2,088,000 $2,824,000 to $2,846,000. That's how the STEB market value plays a role in now determining that Lehigh County paid a little bit more and they should have paid a little bit less based on the STEB market values. So then if you look at what the 21 done underneath the new base millage rates, the 23.5637, sorry, up top is wrong, and multiply that by 4.03%, we get to Lehigh County's millage rate next year of 21.5132 with the 4.6% increase. Because you can't have any county go over the 4.6, once one of those counties hits 4.6, the other county automatically stops. So Northampton County is going to hit that 4.6% increase quicker than Lehigh County does. So Northampton County is going to have would have a full tax increase of 4.6%, and Lehigh County would only have a 4.03%. But overall, it's a 4.6% tax increase between both counties.
And over
That's-
the years, it has switched.
It
between
switches
Lehigh and
all the time, correct?
Everybody understand that?
Huh?
Everybody understand?
It switches all the time. So if you have properties that sell in Lehigh County and they're selling higher than they should be selling, that's gonna, in 2 years, we're gonna see that STEB market value go the other way. And that's gonna flip all the numbers again. So again, we talked about the potential additional revenues, not in the current numbers. So we have that 768 million for the, 768,000 for basic ed, 232,000 for special ed. As Mr. Green said, those are not in the current budget. So if those do come through, we're gonna have almost $1 million in additional revenues that are not currently built into this year's budget.
Thank you, Mrs. Molitoris. So administrative recommendations for the school board to consider as we move through this process, keeping in mind that we'll have at least 2 more iterations of the budget to present to you, is to consider a tax increase and utilization of the fund balance to generate some revenue for upcoming year. Continue to look for grant revenue opportunities to fund positions such as our school police officer and social worker. And continue to search for expenditure saving options such as utilities, transportation, and staffing. And that concludes the budget presentation for this evening.
And we just want to say that we are showing it with the 4.6 because that's the worst case scenario. So what you decide as a board to do after that, that is totally up to you. We just wanted to present you with worst case scenario.
What happens if we don't have our budget done by June 30th?
Have to.
Yeah, you have to.
School districts don't have the luxury of changing the law. We have to have it done by the end of June. There has been years where the state has not passed their budget. The worst I've ever seen, I believe, was January.
Yep.
I have a question. The middle school position that you're adding, that's an individual who's already on staff. We're not going from a half-time position to a full-time position. That includes benefit additions to that, correct?
It would include benefit additions.
It would. So we are taking a half-time person, making a full-time, so it's more than salary. Okay.
Correct. Mr. Link, in the presentations of the buildings, all the buildings, Slatington, Peters, middle school, high school, there was a note that there was no increase to supplies or, is that curriculum? What all falls into that? And
So that
was that no,
yeah, so it's not curriculum unless it's curriculum that's already been within that building's budget. So whenever we buy new curriculum, it comes out of central office the first year, and then it's built into the school district's, the individual school building's budget year 2 and moving forward. Most of that stuff is, like honestly, supplies, paper, pencils, markers, classroom supplies, stuff like that. It's not curricular in nature.
okay. So then, as we add the new classrooms or the possibility of new classrooms, we would have that, and that's already built into the budget. Like, for instance, that for Peters, if we were to add that 7th kindergarten position, is that all funded already with the current budget, or are we,
So things
Cutting
like
things
classroom furniture, we have enough in storage that we would be able to put the student chairs in, the student desk, teacher's desk, you know, stuff like that. All the other things that, materials that the teacher would need. If we don't have it in-house between amongst one of the buildings or up at central office, then we may have to purchase new things, but it would be incidental. Things like laptops, we have. Things like the staff laptop, we have. Things like an overhead projector, Mr. Hill would have.
okay,
So it's, I'll look to Mrs. Molatoris, but I would say it would be fairly incidental
so
to
it's not
start up a new
educational
classroom.
purposes?
Right.
Correct.
What that number would be looking at, that's in the curriculum budget, or another budget to review?
Yeah, I mean, things like our math curriculum. Eureka. Thank you. Those things like that, you know, what that comes down to is, you know, maybe an extra ream of paper for us to be able to print it, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Sure, good
I
question.
have a question, and I don't know if you're going to be able to give me an answer tonight, but last 2 years, I've had a kindergarten grandson and a first grade this year. And the beginning of each year, there's this, like a laundry list of crayons, things parents have to buy and bring to school. It's probably about $50 worth of stuff. I know some school districts do not require that, and I just wondered, you know, not every parent or every family can afford that list. And I think that the buildings are able to provide those things, but is there any thought to doing away with that list that families get at the beginning of the year before school starts? And I know it would be a cost, but I've heard it a number of times from parents who are not as fortunate and have multiple children in the district. So you might not be able to answer it tonight, but I think it bears looking at some point.
We can absolutely look at that, but I will kind of kick it over to Mr. Schneiderite or Mr. Briner or any of the building principals. If we do have a family that reaches out and says, I just can't, what are some of the systems that we have in place to support those families?
We have supplies at the school, so I'd have to relook at the wording in the document. It's not as if you can't bring your own crayons and you don't get crayons. You know, we've got systems in place. We've got our own, again, building budgets where we can look at purchasing extra supplies, and we certainly do that throughout the year. So I don't think there's ever been anybody who has had to suffer through kindergarten, first or second grade without the crayons that they need. So you know, I would defer to like letting it take a look at the wording of it, because I was never, when you said it was mandatory or required.
Well, young families who it's their first time
Yeah.
dealing with the school district, they get that list, they think, oh, I got to get this stuff. And look, I moved here and I had a young family. And when you're a young family just starting out, you don't have all the pennies you need. So it just has come to my attention that it can be a hardship. And some of them don't want to bring it forward that we can't afford. So they will figure out one way or another to get that list satisfied. But it is still a hardship for many families. That's kind of where my head is.
I have a question. Actually, I have several. What I'll call the wish list of added positions, is that included in the budget numbers that we were given right now? So if we approve those, that's going to be in the total number? Correct. All right. My second question is, being a forward thinker, you know, we're going from block scheduling in the high school to what I'll call traditional 8-period schedule, or whatever period it's going to be. What would be a projected additional cost for next year to plan ahead by making that transition, because, you know, you have students that are going through a semester to a semester, so in essence, you're educating half the student body in, let's say, history. You know, some take it the first half, some take it the second half. So we're gonna have to double up, you know, the amount of resources that we need as far as, instead of sharing books or even online licensees, we are now going to need to have them for all. Is there any projected number out there? Just looking forward to next year.
Sure, so it would actually be not next year, but the following year, if that were to be implemented.
Okay.
So we're still working through those, I'm sorry, I feel like I'm talking in Mr. Green's ear.
No, that's fine.
We're still looking through what that would look like.
All right, so next year we're blocked yet?
Yep.
And it
Yep.
would be year out?
It would be the year 23, 24.
Okay, very good.
And then,
Can I
go ahead, Dr. Stoker.
So, yes, it's delayed one more year, so it would be for 23, 24. We are looking into the possibility of using some curriculum that's free. So things that are online, that are free resource types of materials to save on some of those costs. And then this summer, we're looking, after we run our full master schedule for still block for the 22-23 school year, we're looking to run some scenarios for how we're gonna fill that schedule.
Okay.
In a traditional schedule.
Yeah, I just don't want to lose sight that we are making that change. It's a pretty big change, actually. My third question is, what is the impact of taking our computer classes or I'm not exactly sure what the instruction looks like, and sorry for my naivety, in the elementary schools with computer education, having our librarians assume that responsibility. I guess I don't understand that role.
Sure.
Because I saw it in both elementary schools, that was a proposal.
Yes. So, I'm gonna kind of start with the end. You asked, what is the impact? We won't actually know that until we do it for a year. But what I will say is those conversations have already begun with our current elementary librarian. And the feedback that we received, and I'll look to our building principals who have had the direct conversation with them, is seems excited about it. He really enjoys instructing technology, makerspace type activities, STEM type activities. So really what that would mean is we'd have to look at that curriculum, including with the input of the teacher, and say, what is currently happening in elementary library that what are the must-dos? What can we back off of? And then what can we backfill that with the direct instruction on how to use the computer, how to use certain very elementary, primary level software applications, and then he would lead that instruction.
Okay. Is that kind of trying to alleviate the issue that some of the elementary teachers had with adding that computer class back into the elementary school?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So we don't know the impact, but it might be minimal as far as those additional duties compared to what they're currently doing now.
Yes,
There's gonna be a change
The
in the
goal
curriculum.
is that the children, that they in their core and content areas, right, the traditional classroom teachers will not have to spend time delivering direct instruction on, at the very fundamental level, this is how you turn your computer on. This is how you log in. This is how you navigate to Google Classroom or Canvas or whatever it is. That some of that direct instruction could be delivered in the library setting, so the classroom teachers can focus more on literacy, numeracy, those type of skills.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure what their duties were now and then what the additional would be, that's all. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Looking left for budget questions?
I got one more quick one.
Down, looking right, go ahead.
It's just a general question, really, in regards to school taxes in general. As a school district, do we have anything in place to help our local senior citizens? Is there like a tier program that we offer, or is that more of a state, county thing?
Yeah, we do not have anything along those lines at this point. We also, I know a lot of people ask about the rent rebate program. We don't do any kind of rent rebate programs here either.
Okay. Is that because we just choose not to, or because we're not allowed to?
No, we've never done them.
Okay.
Not that we can't, not that we haven't chose to, we've just never done them.
Okay.
Not saying it's not something we can't look into.
I was just curious because, I mean, as a taxpayer, it hurts everyone, especially seniors that have not had children in the system for a very long time. You know, on fixed incomes, it's kind of tough. So, okay.
Okay, John? Anyone else down there? Robin, Gary? Any questions at this time?
Oh, good.
You okay? Okay, we'll close the budget discussion at this time then, and where are we here?
Personnel?
Page 2, personnel. And, yeah, I was going to say we have 2 abstentions, Mr. Fedorcha on item F and Mr. Disler on item B2. So is there a motion to approve the personnel items? So moved. We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second? Any discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And the 2 abstentions will be noted. Personnel, done with that one. Done with that one. Oh, we have a lot of personnel. Wow. Okay, we're moving down to page 5, policy. Is there a motion to approve the items A and B under policy, please?
So moved.
Any motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
You have a second, thank you. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And so ordered. I have nothing under conferences. Under curriculum and instruction, we have items A, B, C, and D. Is there a motion to approve the curriculum and instruction items, please?
So moved.
Motion? Is there a second?
Second.
And a second? Any discussion and questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And so ordered. I have nothing under old business. Under new business, we have setting graduation. You were looking for a motion to do that, even though you announced it earlier. You still want an official?
still do it,
You
yes.
still want an official motion? Okay, we'll take a motion to do that. Is there a motion for the new business item, graduation?
Here.
Thank you. Second? Is there a
Second.
second? Bob? Okay. Any discussion or questions on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And so ordered. And I just want to point out to everybody that we have 2 different dates on here. In the past, we went through that, I won't even use a term for it, you know, it's got to be outside if it's nice, but if it rains, we pull it in, and then at the last minute it rains, and it doesn't rain, so there's 2 different dates set here at this point in time. So it's not like if it rains, it's going to be inside or whatever, so just keep that in mind when you're making your plans. What's that?
I have an update for financial.
You have an update for financial, you want to do that now?
So in financial letter F, when we're talking about the 5-year contract for the maintenance of the weight room equipment, it notes in the budget as written, funding through the buildings and grounds budget, that funding would actually, come from the athletic department budget. So Attorney Roddick, I don't know if we need a motion to change that or if that's considered, falls within the allowance to just vote on it with a verbal update.
We're going to vote on it.
Yeah.
Let's not make a big deal of it. Yeah, this is not the Congress of the United States. Okay, so we have some financial items with the addition mentioned by Mr. Ling. Is there a motion to approve the financial items?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second? Got a second, thank you. Discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the financial items, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And so ordered. I think we're down to where legal, expulsion hearing waiver approval. Is there a motion to approve the items under legal?
So moved.
That was Gail?
Yes.
Got a motion, thank you. Second?
I'll second.
Second? Discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. And so ordered. I have nothing under correspondence. Do you have anything to do at this point? No? Thank you. Information, you have some minutes of some meetings there, as listed. At this time, we'll move to recognition of guests, and I think you have some names on there, is that right?
Nobody had signed up to speak on agenda items, and nobody had signed up to speak on non-agenda items.
Okay. You said agenda items, but not non-agenda items.
Nobody signed up to speak on anything.
Oh, okay. All right. How's good for you?
Paige has a question?
I'm just curious, this doesn't really affect me,
We can't have any discussion from the audience now, but technically you're a board member, so you can ask a question.
So, you guys are going to like the 8-period schedule instead of block schedule, but half the time, there's not many teachers that are able to like teach some of the classes, like some of the classes have to get dropped. So, and a lot of teachers have to teach multiple classes, like on the other half of the semester, so how would you guys even do that? Would you have to drop classes to make it, so you have teachers teaching like throughout the day, like how would that work?
Sure. So I'll say that right now, we are still working through what the actual schedule would look like, but there's an entire matrix of how we would have to assign different teachers at different times to run on a more traditional 8-period day. But that may actually involve something that's called like a drop schedule, where even still some classes are kind of rotated through labs, things like that. So it is we purposely delayed it a year because we know that we want to get it right. I don't know if that fully answers your question, Paige, but that's where we are in the process right now. You're welcome. Good question.
Thank you. I have a question, and I just want to throw this out for the board. And normally in July, we do not have a meeting of any kind, and I'm not asking for a decision tonight. Just think about it. If there's anyone interested in having a meeting, interested in having an executive session, interested in having a retreat, or doing anything in the month of July. And I know I'm going to be away for parts of it. I know a lot of people make plans, and it's difficult. I'm just throwing it on the table. If it's something the board would be interested in, think about it, and maybe we can have some discussion at a future meeting and see if anybody wants to get together for that. Okay? I have nothing else. Anyone else? Anything for the good organization? Yeah, go ahead.
Just real quick, I just wanted to say, the temporary fencing out there in the softball field looks good. A lot better than what it used to be. Looking forward to the one in the baseball field going in. Also, a shout out to Kylie Snyder for hitting the first home run over the fence for the middle school. Good job on that. It was 10-5 when I left. I don't know how they finished. Did they win? You don't know? Okay. No, just wanted to shout out for that.
Thank you, John. Okay, if there's no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We're done.